Dear Literature in English student, Form 3 and Form 4s, you are most welcome to the analysis of the novel Houseboy by Ferdinand Oyono. The setting of the novel is Cameroon during colonialism. The novel Houseboy was first published in 1956 in French language, of course. But this one that was written or translated into English in 1959. Introduction. Houseboy is a novel that tells about Toundi, an African boy who finds himself working for the French priests when he wants to escape the brutality of his father. Toundi works for Father Gilbert, a priest whom he used to love. But unfortunately, Father Gilbert dies in a motorcycle accident. After that, Toundi, the African boy, is taken by the commandant, who employs him as the houseboy. He lives happily before the arrival of the wife of the commandant, and in the initial stages of the arrival of the wife of commandant, Toundi is happy. But afterwards, Toundi's life is not well after the arrival of Madam, the wife of commandant, and especially when the wife of commandant realizes that Toundi knows about her extramarital affairs with the warden, prisoner warden. Things to note about the novel Houseboy. This story or the novel was written in the form of the diary, which was written by Toundi himself before his death. His death. So before he died, Toundi wrote different issues relating to himself, and that is why we are reading his story. Another thing is Father Gilbert is the one who taught Toundi how to read and write. Therefore, before Toundi met Father Gilbert, he was illiterate. But when he met Father Gilbert, he became literate. Another thing is Father Gilbert gave Toundi a spiritual education, which made him a Catholic convert. So, of course, Toundi became a Catholic follower. Another thing is Madam, or the wife of commandant, was unfaithful to her marriage. She betrays her husband by sleeping with the prisoner warden. Madam, the wife of commandant, was unfaithful to her marriage. She betrays her husband by sleeping with the prisoner warden. Another thing from this novel is the novel shows the African suffering under colonialism. People are harshly beaten without reasons. Example, Moreau is cruel and racist. He beats Africans to death. Another thing is, when Toundi knows about Madam's extramarital affairs, Madam accuses Toundi of theft, while Toundi is innocent, and this makes the life of Toundi burned. Another thing is Toundi is beaten violently by Moreau and by Mendim. However, we shall later on see that Mendim is the one who helped Toundi escape. So he is later taken to hospital, where he later escapes and goes to his home, where he dies due to injuries he gets from Moreau in prison. Another thing is Toundi dies trying to question about his identity. He says, "Brother, what are we black men who are called French?" So Toundi dies trying to question about his identity, or the identity of the Africans people. He says, "Brother, what are we black men who are called French?" Themes such as colonialism, identity, betrayal, exploitation, brutality, white culture or Western culture, Traditions, modernity, immorality, and protest are discussed in this novel. Dear students, let us look at a thematic analysis, or at the analysis of the themes. The first theme is colonialism. The novel shows how Africans suffer under colonialism. Whites, especially the French in Cameroon, torture the natives and subject them under harsh conditions. In this novel, Father Gilbert, Commandant, Madam, and Moreau torture and exploit the native Africans like Toundi and Sophie. Also, Father Gilbert gives Toundi all the clothes as payments for saving him. Moreau beats Africans to death. Also, Moreau beats torture and injures Toundi when he knows that the boy know their extramarital affairs with Madam. In this novel, the death of Toundi is also caused by the beating of Moreau and other colonialists. Ferdinand in the novel shows how colonialism was more still evil. Finally, this novel, and especially on the part of colonialism, is trying to reveal the hypocrisy of the whites against the Africans. And remember, the French used the system of assimilation policy, which teaches people that it is good and that it is trying to make the Africans look like the whites, while in actual sense it was not practiced with pure heart. Dear students, another theme is Catholicism or Christianity. The novelist wants to show the link between colonialism and Christianity. The novel shows that colonialists used different ways or means like Christianity to brainwash the natives. Catholic has been used to convert the natives who were made to believe that their culture was not good. Catholic is portrayed as a means of colonization, so it was bad at that time. Father Gilbert, a religious leader, humiliates Toundi, so he was amoral. Father Vandermeer also is seen to be abusive. Catechists are always drunk, like Maltins. Another theme is modernity. The novelists show that life in Cameroon is changing due to new ways introduced by white men or the Frenchmen. Christianity is a new life in Cameroon. Example, Toundi becomes a Christian and is baptized. Schools are also built in Dangani. Foreign languages like French are also part of modernity. They are taught, and Africans just use French also to communicate. Europeans' entertainments like clubs also are introduced in Cameroon. Colonial leadership is also a modern issue. Commandant is the head of leaders, you see. Condoms are also indicating modernity, because in the novel, when the prisoner warden and the madam or the wife of the commandant meet, they use condoms. This was less known in Africa before the coming of the whites. Hospitals are also present. There are hospitals for Africans and others for whites. Therefore, there was racism. Dear students, another theme is immorality. This means moral pollution. The novel shows that there is moral pollution in our communities. Moral pollution can be evidenced as follows. First, there is unfaithfulness and promiscuity in our society. Example, Madam has extramarital affair or love with the prisoner director. Calicia, a chambermaid of Madam, used to be a prostitute at the coast. Toundi betrays his traditions like initiation as he runs away from his home when he was about to go for initiation. So, all those are indicators of immorality. Ladies and gentlemen, another theme is betrayal. And this refers to acting against the social social morals or mutual agreement. So the following are some of the betrayals indicated in the novel. Toundi betrays his father by running away from home. Toundi betrays his traditions by avoiding traditional initiation. Okay, another thing is Father Vandermeer betrays his religion by mistreating his fellow people. So he preaches what he doesn't practice. Another thing is Madam betrays her husband by sleeping with the prisoner director or with the prison director. So, ladies and gentlemen, those were some of the indicators of betrayal in our novel. And of course, even in our societies today, there are many people who betray their friends. Message from the novel. 1. Colonialism is an evil system, exploitative and humiliative. Number 2. Some religious leaders are hypocrites. They preach what they don't practice. Example, Father Gilbert and Father Vandermeer. Number 3. Racism must be cursed or avoided. Number 4. Betrayal, exploitation, and humiliation are hindrances to development. So whenever there are betrayal, exploitation, and humiliation, development cannot be achieved. Lastly, Africans must be proud of who they are. They must not value on the whites thinking that they are inferior, that the Africans are inferior. No, they are also superior. Example, Toundi is tortured or exploited by the whites, whom he considers superior color. Dear students, maybe before I quit, let me speak a little bit about the theme of identity. This, okay, I had forgotten this. Identity refers to the sense of who one is. It could mean how one is and where he or she belongs. As an African, one must follow African culture, but when he follows Western culture, he or she can be considered to have lost his identity. So in this novel, The Houseboy, we see Toundi in his deathbed asks a rhetorical question about his or her identity as African. He says, "What are we black men who are called French?" Through his question, we learn that the people of Cameroon has lost their identity as Africans and instead they have adopted Western identity or culture. They speak French. The Cameroonians are also called the French, while in reality they are not the French. The novelist, therefore, wants people to protect their identity and they believe that they are superior like other races. And by the time you start valuing the culture and the traditions of others, when they exploit you, sometimes they decide to segregate you because you are not the same with them. You are not them. You are you yourself. So we have to believe in our own culture. We have to believe in our own selves. Ladies and gentlemen, let me wind up the novel by speaking about characters and characterization. The first character is Toundi Ondoa. This is the protagonist in the novel, or the main character. He is a young man who comes into conflict with his father. As a result, he runs away from his home and goes to live with Father Gilbert. Another thing is, Toundi is the houseboy. The title of the novel is derived from his work or his servantship. He works for Father Gilbert and later he works for the commandant. Toundi is given the name Joseph or baptized by the Frenchman. It indicates how he starts to lose his identity. Another thing is, Toundi is brainwashed to believe that whites or all Frenchmen are good, although they torture and humiliate him. Another characterization is after Father Gilbert's death, Toundi becomes the houseboy of the commandant. The other issue is Toundi represents the exploited or colonized Africans. Lastly, he reflects child labor. Another character is Father Gilbert. Father Gilbert is the priest, Catholic priest. He's the one who takes Toundi and lives with him. He seems kind to Toundi, although his kindness is ironical. He gives Toundi all the clothes despite the fact that Toundi works for him very hard. No pay also. He doesn't pay him. Another is he dies of an accident. So Father Gilbert dies of a motorcycle accident. Father Gilbert symbolizes hypocrite religious leaders. In lastly, he teaches Toundi how to read and write. So Father Gilbert is the one who taught Toundi how to read and write. Another character is Father Vandermeer. Father Vandermeer is also a priest. He is a hypocrite as he teaches about love while he himself has no love. He is a racist, exploiter, and the oppressor. He maltreats Toundi. He symbolizes colonialism, oppression, and humiliation done by whites. So he was not actually good as he considers or seems to be. Another character is the commandant. This was the head of European in Dangan. He is brutal as he is seen torturing Africans. At first he loves Toundi, but when his marriage shakes or gets in trouble, he hates Toundi. Instead of hating his wife, Madame Suze, he just hates Toundi, just like Toundi is the causative of his marriage problems. Another character is Madame, the wife of the commandant. She was very beautiful. She was admired by whoever saw her, but she betrays the commandant by having sexual relationship with the prison director. Another character is Sophie. This was the young girl, African mistress of the agricultural engineer. She is conscious. She decides to run away with her boss's money and the clothes because he just realized that she doesn't deserve what she receives from the bosses or the colonial masters. She hates whites. Lastly is relevance. Actually, the novel is relevant to our societies today because although there is no colonialism today, we have neo-colonialism. And yet we have many people who betray their friends. We have many people who have lost their identity. Some of the people are changing their color. They want to look like whites. They don't want the African names. They don't want the African medicines. So people have lost their identity. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can get to know that the novel is still relevant today. And this is the end of the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening. See you next time.